Hey guys, it's Ollie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So it is the third day of Vlogmas, which means you are seeing this on December 5th. Today we're going to be talking about how to keep your animals warm during the winter. So animals like reptiles or amphibians, your snails, your invertebrates, your dogs and cats even, they all need to stay warm during the winter in one way or another. Now, dogs and cats aren't as much of a concern as like lizards and snakes and stuff are. The reason it is so important to keep herps and invertebrates warm is because they cannot thermoregulate like mammals can, meaning that their environment is what makes them warm or cold, and most of them have heat requirements, so you cannot keep them too warm or too cold. Now the thing is most of the time you can just give them a heat mat or a like over the tank heater and that's fine, but in the winter sometimes that's not all it's gonna take. So it's very important that you know how to keep them warm. Sometimes your undertake heat mat or your heat emitter just won't be enough to keep them warm. Sometimes you have an animal that's normally good at room temperature, but now that it's winter, not so good. Especially if you're like me and you live up north, it can be very difficult to give your animals proper heat. The way that they stay warm in the wild is typically through something called brumation, and we will talk about that later. I actually have a video dedicated to brumation. It's going to be later in the month, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, we're just going to talk about how to keep them warm in captivity. So one of the biggest things to take into account is that glass enclosures let out heat pretty fast. They're not very well insulated whatsoever. I have a lot of glass enclosures, so this becomes a problem for me. PVC and wood enclosures are your best bet with this. They just keep in humidity and heat a lot better than glass enclosures do. So if you have glass enclosures, this video is going to be super helpful. So one of the biggest things is you're going to want to insulate. You're going to want to try to insulate any drafts, like your windows, your doors, anything like that, like vents in the floor that might let air in. So I live in a pretty old trailer and I get a lot of drafts in here. So I actually have a blanket over my bedroom door, even if it's closed, because there's a lot of cracks in it. And I also have insulation on the windows, like plastic or blankets to keep those drafts out as well. You're also going to want to try to maybe insulate your enclosures if needed. So you can actually put things on, like if you have a glass enclosure, you can put things around it to kind of insulate it and keep the heat more trapped in. Things you can use to insulate are things like pillows, blankets, styrofoam, things like that, things that just kind of hold it all in. Styrofoam's a pretty good one, but blankets are definitely more readily available. Another thing that you can do besides insulation is you can have external heating. So aside from your heat mat and heat emitter on the enclosure, you can have external heating in the room. So you can have a space heater. Just be very sure that you're being safe with it and you're following all of the safety precautions on it. I do recommend one with a thermostat and one that if it gets tipped over, it stops. Those can still be pretty dangerous, so just make sure you're following all the guidelines for them and you're being safe and you're not leaving them on when you're not home and stuff. You know, don't burn your house down. So while we're home, I have the heater on in my room. I have a little space heater and we have the blankets up on the door. So when we leave for work, we turn it off and we close the door, and it usually keeps the room warm all day, because we have it pretty well insulated in there. Another thing that you can do is you can up your heat sources on your enclosure. So you can get a secondary heat source. Don't make the whole thing. You still need a cool side, but maybe you can get a more high-powered one. Maybe you can get like a better bulb, a second heat emitter on top, something like that to boost up that heat. Most of the time, animals at nighttime also don't need as much heat and they can deal with the natural drop. However, in winter, that drop can be too sudden if you have your heaters on timers or something. So you might want to have a nighttime heater to keep the nighttime warmer as well, because it drops. At least where I live, it drops. So you just want to make sure that you're not neglecting the nighttime one and all of that. Now again, have this set on a thermostat. You always, always, always want a thermostat with heating your enclosures. You do not want to cook your animals. And always, always, always make sure you are taking your specific species into consideration, because heat that my ball python would need is not something that my snails would need and would probably kill them. So you want to make sure that you're not just generalizing all of your exotics and that you have their specific needs in mind. Now, as far as dogs and cats go, it's a little bit easier, but you still don't want them to be cold. So, again, example, my dog Daisy doesn't really get too cold, but my dog Ruby gets super cold super easily. She does wear a sweater a lot because she just shivers all the time. So in here we have a small space heater that heats up the living room, and it keeps it relatively warm in here. And it's not like an accordion or anything. It's just this little bitty one that turns off when it gets knocked over, has a thermostat. It's probably one of the safest ones in the house. Just general things of how you would keep yourself warm. Maybe add some more nesting material or bedding to your dog beds or your couches, wherever your dog likes to hang out. Now that all of that is said, I will be briefly talking about power outages for you, to kind of go over what you can do in the case of a power outage. A good thing to do is to want to have like an emergency kit if needed. So an emergency kit could include things like the toe warmers, things like water bottles that you can heat up if you have the ability to heat them up. Those can be super useful. You can use your own body heat as well. So if you're, trying to cuddle, stay warm, you have more body heat than they do. Guarantee it. Honestly, I have done this in a case of a power outage. I have taken my snake Clementine, put her in a pillowcase, and just stuffed her down my shirt. Like, it can save them. A lot of people put their animals in smaller spaces to kind of keep them all contained and warm. People also will put them in styrofoam cases, so like a cooler sort of. You can go to the store and get like temporary coolers in the summertime, and they're just styrofoam, like thick-walled coolers, and you can put your animals in their separate little containers and then put them in there with a warm water bottle or a toe warmer, and it'll insulate it pretty well and keep them warm. So that is in the case of an emergency for a power outage. Just use your own body heat. Try to get some toe warmers, styrofoam cases if you can, but sometimes in winter they're harder to find. I think you can get them on Amazon. I think they're just like, look up styrofoam coolers and you can find some. Heat water bottles if possible. I know they have like these like reheated like jug thingies. I don't know how else to describe them to you. Alright guys, so that was all for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it and that this was helpful for you. My next Zoomis video is going to be all about the dangers of decor, so make sure you are staying tuned for that. That will be out on the 7th. Don't forget to follow me over on Instagram. Link will be down in the description below. Don't forget to follow my art account. I take commissions for custom digital pet pictures, and I am having a deal for December for the holidays. So if you want to check that out, link will also be in the description below. Don't forget to hit the like button for the algorithm, subscribe if you're into this kind of content or really any animal kind of content. Leave a comment down below if this was helpful or if you've ever had to deal with a power outage and what you're doing to keep your pets warm. If you have any new ideas, put them down there below. I will have a pinned comment for you to put like how you can keep animals warm, like how you do it, so that if someone wants to get more resources, we can all kind of come together and put them down there and they can see more opinions than just mine, obviously. There are also lots of videos on YouTube about this topic. You can just search how to keep your reptiles warm. Even if you just have garden snails or something, you'll get more results if you put in like reptiles, and it's the same kind of premise. I'll see you for the next Zoomis video. Bye!